My name is Mark, and I am 60 years old. At 60, you believe you have survived enough storms to recognize the sound of thunder before it breaks. You think you understand love, betrayal, forgiveness. You think you know your wife. I thought I did. Until the night my little boy grabbed my hand outside his school gate, looked up at me with trembling eyes, and whispered words that shattered the quiet rhythm of my life. Dads don't go home tonight. I know something about Mom. The world didn't stop. Cars kept moving. Parents laughed. The school bell rang behind us, but inside my chest something froze. I knelt down in front of him. What do you mean, Daniel? Daniel was only 7. 7-year-olds shouldn't carry secrets heavy enough to bend their shoulders, but my son's face wasn't playful. It wasn't dramatic. It was afraid. He leaned closer, his tiny fingers digging into my coat. She said not to tell you, but I heard her talking. She thinks you don't know. A cold wind passed through me, even though it was early summer. I stood there for a moment, trying to smile, trying to convince myself this was a misunderstanding. Children imagine things, they mishear conversations, they turn whispers into monsters. But a father knows. And I knew something was wrong. The marriage I thought was solid. I met my wife Laura 25 years ago. Back then I was 35 and reckless with hope. She was laughter wrapped in sunlight. She made my ordinary days feel like beginnings. We built a life, a small house, a garden, years of inside jokes. Then Daniel came along when we thought we were too old for more miracles. I believed our marriage had matured into something steady, not fiery but dependable, like an old oak tree, not glamorous but rooted. Looking back now, I realize something painful. Trees can rot from the inside long before they fall. Over the last year, Laura had grown distant. It was subtle at first, more time on her phone, late-night errands, smiles that didn't reach her eyes. But I dismissed it. You don't want to see cracks in the walls of the house you built with your own hands. The secret in my son's voice. That afternoon, instead of driving home, I took Daniel to a nearby park. We sat on a bench under a maple tree. I handed him an ice cream, though he didn't touch it. "Tell me everything," I said softly. He hesitated. "I woke up last night," he whispered. "I heard Mom talking in the kitchen. She was crying. She said she can't let you find out. She said once the papers are signed, everything will be easier." The papers? My stomach tightened. "What papers?" I asked. "I don't know, but she said you trust her too much." I felt as though someone had quietly removed the ground beneath my feet. Trust her too much. That sentence echoed like a verdict. I pulled Daniel into my arms. He wrapped himself around me, small and shaking. "Did she see you?" I asked. He shook his head. "Did she say anything else?" He swallowed. "She said she already talked to someone, and that once the house is in her name, she won't have to pretend anymore." Pretend? That word hurt the most. The longest evening of my life. Instead of going home, I drove aimlessly. I parked near the river and sat there, watching the water move as if it knew how to continue without hesitation. Daniel fell asleep in the back seat. My mind raced. The house in her name. Hadn't she recently asked me to sign something related to refinancing? She had told me it was for tax benefits. I trusted her. I signed. Because that's what husbands do after 25 years. They sign. They believe. They don't imagine betrayal in familiar handwriting. When Daniel woke up, I made a decision. I would not confront her blindly. I would look. The discovery. That night, after dropping Daniel at my sister's house under the excuse of a boys' night, I went home quietly. Laura wasn't there. The house felt strange, not hostile, just staged. I went to the office drawer where we kept important documents. Gone. The folder labeled mortgage had vanished. My chest tightened. I checked the filing cabinet in the bedroom. Nothing. Then I noticed something I had overlooked for months, a locked box in the closet, a small safe I had assumed contained jewelry. I didn't know the code. But after 25 years, I knew my wife's patterns. Our anniversary date. The safe clicked open. Inside were copies of documents. Property transfer forms. Loan agreements. My signature. But something was different. The ownership section. It listed Laura as the sole owner. My name was removed. The date, 3 months ago. My hands began to shake. This wasn't just marital distance. This was planning. Careful, silent, intentional. And then I saw something that cut deeper than any legal betrayal. A letter, not addressed to me. Addressed to someone named Eric. The other man. I didn't need to read the entire letter. A few lines were enough. Once everything is finalized, we won't have to hide anymore. He won't fight it, he never does. Daniel will adjust. Daniel will adjust. As if my son were a piece of furniture. As if I were an inconvenience. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. At 60 years old, you don't expect to start over. You expect comfort, familiarity, gentle agging beside someone who knows the shape of your silence. Instead, I felt like a stranger in my own life. The confrontation. She came home at 10:47 p.m. I remember the time because I looked at the clock as the door opened. She froze when she saw me sitting in the living room. "Mark, I thought you were working late." "I found the papers," I said. Her face drained of color. For a second, just a second, I saw regret. Then calculation replaced it. "You weren't supposed to see those." Not apology. Not explanation. Supposed to. "You transferred the house," I said quietly. "It was complicated," she replied. "You wouldn't understand." "I signed them." "Yes, because you trust me." That word again. Trust. I stood up slowly. "And Eric?" I asked. Silent. She didn't deny it. That hurt more than any confession. "How long?" I asked. 8 months. 8 months. While we had dinner together, while we celebrated Daniel's birthday, while I kissed her goodnight. 8 months of pretending. The truth behind her decision. "I was unhappy, Mark," she said finally, "for years." "Then why did you tell me?" "Because you would have tried to fix it, and I didn't want it fixed." Her honesty was brutal. "I wanted something different," she continued. "Excitement, freedom, not routine." Routine. The life we built. The son we raised. The garden we planted. Routine. "And taking the house?" I asked. I needed security. Security. At the cost of mine. The breaking point. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. At 60 years old, anger doesn't explode the way it does in youth. It settles heavy, suffocating. "You involved our son," I said. "He heard you." That finally broke her composure. "What?" He told me everything. For the first time, she looked shaken. "You shouldn't have involved him," she whispered. I laughed softly. "I didn't, you did." The strength I didn't know I had. The next weeks were brutal. Lawyers, documents, revelations. Because of the way she manipulated the paperwork, I had legal grounds to challenge everything. And I did. Not out of revenge, but out of responsibility. For Daniel. For myself. I refused to let my son grow up thinking his father was disposable. The court process was messy, painful, public. But the truth surfaced. Forgery adjustments, misrepresentation, hidden accounts. Laura's careful plan unraveled under scrutiny. The house remained shared property. Custody was granted primarily to me. When the judge read the decision, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. The night that changed everything. One evening, months later, Daniel and I sat on the same park bench where he had first warned me. He leaned against me. "Are you mad at Mom?" he asked. I thought carefully before answering. I'm hurt, I said, but I'm not mad at you, and I never will be. He looked up at me. I was scared that night. I know. Did I do the right thing? I held his small face in my hands. You did the bravest thing. Tears filled his eyes. And mine. Starting over at 60. Life at 60 is not supposed to begin again. But sometimes it does. I learned how to cook properly. I learned how to braid Daniel's hair for school plays when he needed a costume. I learned that loneliness is not the same as being alone. The house felt quieter without Laura. But it also felt honest. No whispers behind closed doors. No staged smiles. Just truth. Painful, yes. But clean. The unexpected apology. A year later, Laura asked to meet. She looked older, softer, less certain. It wasn't what I thought it would be, she admitted. Eric had left. The excitement had faded. I'm sorry, she said. And for the first time, I believed she meant it. But some doors close not because of anger, but because of clarity. I forgive you, I told her. But forgiveness does not always mean return. The moral I learned at 60. If there is one thing I have learned at 60 years old, it is this. Trust is precious, but it must never replace awareness. Love deeply, but do not ignore your intuition. Listen especially to the quiet voices. Sometimes wisdom comes from a 7-year-old child holding your hand outside a school gate. Sometimes the truth arrives in a whisper. If Daniel had stayed silent, I might have lost everything. Not just my home, but my dignity, my future, my self-respect. A father's promise. Today, Daniel is 10. He still sometimes asks, Dad, are we okay? And I always answer the same way. Yes, because we tell the truth in this house. I am Mark. I am 60 years old. I thought my life was ending the night my son told me not to go home. But it wasn't an ending. It was a revelation. And sometimes the most painful revelations are the ones that save you. Moral of the story. Never ignore the small warnings life gives you. Trust is beautiful, but blind trust can cost you everything. And above all, protect your integrity, because when everything else falls apart, it is the only thing that remains standing.